Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to have a look at building our first page on our test website. So in the last video, I took you through creating a template and saving that template in your resources folder. And we created an index file, HTML file. Now, I'm just going to quickly delete that one. So in my Explorer, I can just go right click and delete. It'll ask me if I'm sure, and I'm very sure I want to do that. Oh. Yes, we want to delete that permanently. Okay. Now, the reason I just deleted that index file is because I wanted to start from scratch here. So if we get our template file, so our HTML template file, you'll see I added the extra language tag that I forgot to do in the first video. Rightio. Now, as I was saying before, any website has to have some sort of index HTML file in it. The reason for this is on your web servers where your web page will live, when someone types in the URL or the address for that website, the web server will point them to the folder where your whole web page lives, and then it will start looking for an index.html file. And if it can't find an index.html file, it'll look for an index.php file. And if it can't find that as well, it'll just display the contents of that web folder as it would say in your File Explorer. So it'll just pop up looking something like that. And you don't really want that. It's not a very good user experience at all. So for that reason, you have to have an index.html file. And generally speaking, because you have to have it and it's the first page that'll load up, most people use the index file, index.html file, as their home page. Okay? So we've got our template opened up, and we're going to go File, Save As, and we're going to save that file in our www folder. And we're going to call it index. Remember, no capital letters, no spaces, and save. Okay, so now we've saved a copy of our template file as the index.html file inside our www folder. Okay, so a very good thing to be able to do as you're putting together your page is to be able to have a bit of a preview or look at it. And the best way to do that is to open up a browser and preview the page in there. Okay, so you can just open up a web browser, type in the web address or the file location of your web page. So in our case, or in my case, it's in my D drive, and it's in my website course 101 in the test website folder. And it's index.html. Oh. Now, why didn't it find that? Test website, index.html. Oh, I forgot my www, didn't I? Let's try that. Rightio, that's a bit better. So, as you can see, there is nothing on the page because we haven't put anything into our body tags yet. But you can see that on our tab we've got the text that displays in the tab of the page. So we know it's working. Okay. Now, a good thing to do is to leave this browser window open, and when you make changes to your file and you save that file, you can then just quickly jump over to your browser window, hit the refresh button, and it'll update the page for you. Another way of quickly getting here instead of typing all that out is to just use your File Explorer, go locate the index or the web page that you want to have a look at, and just double click on it, and it'll open it up automatically in your web browser. Okay, so there's several ways you can get there to view a preview. We'll just leave that one up there for now so we can come back and look at that as we go. Okay, so now we might start putting a bit of relevant information into our template. So we'll start with our title, which is the information that shows up in our tab up here. And I think we'll just change that to homepage dash test website. Of course, you can pretty much put anything you like in there. And in our description, we'll just put in a bit of content saying home page of our test website. And of course, we should already have our name in as our author. And at this stage, we don't have a style sheet, so we're just going to leave that as it is because it won't affect us just yet. Rightio. So now we might start working on putting a bit of content into this page. Now, you might have already noticed with all these tags, we've got some conventions or formats that everything's following. In the case of most of these tags, like the body tag here, for example, we have what's known as an opening tag, and then we have a closing tag. And as you can see, the main difference between the opening tag and the closing tag is that there's a / in the closing tag. Now, this is the general rule for pretty much all your tags on your HTML file. There are a few exceptions. These meta tags are an exception. They don't have a closing tag because their information's all contained in the opening tag. Same with the link tag. And you'll also see there's one or two tags that we use in the body that are don't have to have a closing tag. But generally speaking, most tags have an opening and a closing. Okay, another thing you'll probably notice in these tags is something called an attribute. Now, attributes always go in the opening tag. You don't put any attributes in the closing tag because they won't be read. And they follow the basic rule of the name of the attribute and then the value of the attribute. It always has an equals and the value is always in quotes. Now, depending on the tag, these attributes can all be different. There are a lot of resources out on the web that can give you a rundown on all the different types of tags that you can use and all the different attributes that those tags may have. We're only going to be covering some of the basic ones for starters here today. I'd recommend going and having a look at W3 Schools. They've got a lot of good resources when it comes to this sort of thing, and that'll certainly help you out a lot. But for now, just be aware that any tag will have an opening and a closing, and that some tags will contain attributes. Okay. So let's get around to putting some content into our page. So between the header tags, we're going to start there, and we're going to put in a fake company title. Now, a very common tag that you'll be using is our header tag, which is a H1. And we'll just call this company ABC123. Okay. Now, as standard, the heading tags come in 6 different flavors. So there's a H1, there's a H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. H1's the biggest, H6 is the smallest. That's pretty much how that goes. So we've put that in there and we've put some content between it, and we'll save that. Now, if we go back over and click on our web browser and we press refresh, you'll see that we get the ABC123 appearing on our web page. And you'll also see that our tab has changed to Homepage Test Website. So our changes have worked. And if they haven't, come back in here and have a look at your code. Make sure you've got your heading or your H1 tag in between your header tags. Make sure you've got all your opening and closing tags in the proper space. Because generally speaking, if you're having issues with things not displaying properly on the browser, it's because one of these rogue tags hasn't been closed off properly or not being put where you thought you should put it. Okay. For now, we're just going to leave the navigation section empty because we're not going to look at links yet. We're just going to look at basic simple tags that you can use to display content. Okay, so another common tag to use is our paragraph tag. It's just a simple P tag. And then we put content between that. Now, because you probably don't have any text content, I generally just use what's known as filler text. And if you go and search the web for something like Lorem Ipsum, you'll find things like Lorem Ipsum generators. And they just generate text. I believe it's Latin or something like that. And they just generate a bit of copy text that we can throw in as filler text. Oh, view, we might turn on our word wrap so it just generates a bit of filler text that we can put into a paragraph and we can see it. Or see how much room that particular text box is going to take up. Okay, so we'll save that. We'll jump back to our home page and we'll refresh it again. And you'll see that we've now got some text. So if we just copy and paste that whole paragraph underneath itself again, we'll take a few new lines. Making sure this is all between our main tags. We'll save that. We'll go back and have another look in our web browser, refresh it, and you'll see that now we've got 2 paragraphs of text. Okay. Now, if we wanted to, we can also add headings in here. So we might take a few new lines at the top here in our main section. And we might just put in another H1 heading. And we'll put in we'll just call it H1 main section. Oh, we should put a caption on. Just so we know it's there. Now, don't worry about putting too many lines in between your tags. If anything, I'd probably encourage doing it in the early stages, just so you can see clearly where things are. The browser itself will actually ignore white space. It'll only read one blank space and then it'll ignore everything else after that. So you don't have to worry about it being displayed on your web page. So if I save this here now, and we go back and have a look at our browser, refresh it, you'll see that we've got our main section there, but we've still only got the same gap. So we've put in a H1 up here. So let's just stick in a H2 down here, just so you can see the difference. So that's a heading 2 tag. We'll just call that H2 main section, just so you can see the difference. So we'll save that. We'll go have a look in here. And as you can see, the H2 tag makes a slightly smaller heading than the H1. Okay. Now, some other tags that you can use when it comes to text are things like you can bold a certain part of text. So in the case on this first paragraph here, how about we make Lorem Ipsum bold? So we'll just click the start of that paragraph, so in front of the L, and we'll just put in a tag called B. And as you can see, if you've got Visual Studio Code, it'll automatically generate the closing tag. So we'll just highlight that closing tag and we'll move it to the end of the lorem ipsum. So we've got the opening tag B and the closing tag at the end of the lorem ipsum. Now, if we save that, we go have a look in our test again, refresh it, and you'll notice now that lorem ipsum is in bold. Now, there are a few other different types of tags we can use. There's also one known as italics. So we'll just go to Consector here, and funnily enough, we use I for italic. We put that at the end, save that. We refresh again, and you'll see that Consector's in italics. And there's also another one that we will put on this word here, and it is underlined, so it's a U. We'll save that and refresh it, and you'll see that that bit of text there now has a line under it. Now, I wouldn't recommend using the underline tag because that's also the format that is used for a hyperlink. So it can be quite confusing to the user if you put an underline on a piece of text and it doesn't actually link anywhere. So I wouldn't recommend using the underline, but it is there. Now, another thing we can do with these tags is we can nest them. So just to make it a bit easier to see, we will go to the second paragraph, and on lorem ipsum, we're going to make it bold and italic. So we'll start off by creating the bold tag and wrapping that around our word. And now, if we want to make it italic as well, we do something called nesting. So after the opening bold tag, we click in there between the end of the bold tag and the L, and we'll put in our I tag for italic. Then we'll move the closing I tag to just between the M and the closing bold tag. So in other words, this is nesting. So whatever tag you open with is the last tag that's closed, and so on and so forth. So in this case, the last tag that's opened is the italic tag, so it's the first tag we close. Now, if we save that, we refresh, and you'll see now that our lorem ipsum on the second paragraph is bold and also italicized. Okay. So that's the basics for putting in text. We'll leave this one here for now, and in the next one we'll have a look at putting in some lists to order your information. Okay.